Welcome to the Beyond Fat Loss podcast, where we don't just stop at fat loss. You'll learn about all the good stuff that follows: how to build muscle, how to enjoy more food, and how to stay lean without going to extremes. We are your hosts, Sean and Katie, and today we're going to reveal what most coaches won't tell you about chasing a physique goal.
Physique change and body transformation is an amazing accomplishment. But make no mistake about it, it is hard work, not just physically, but mentally too. In our experience, one of the reasons why so many people fall short of achieving their physique goals is due to having unrealistic expectations about what it would really take. Some people think it's an impossible task, therefore they never even get started or give it a proper attempt to begin with. Others start off expecting to see much quicker results than they get, and then the realization that this will take much longer than expected cripples them. So they give up.
So in this episode, we're going to give you a raw version of what you should expect when it comes to changing your physique. Many coaches make it out to be far too hardcore, which puts people off doing it entirely. But on the other end of the scale, and potentially what you could class as the worst end of the scale, there are coaches that make it out to be far easier than it is, just to get clients to sign up with them, only to have their dreams crushed when they realize 8 weeks is barely scratching the surface of body transformation. By listening to this episode, you'll be armed and empowered about approaching your physique goals moving forwards. And I have to give my credit to Katie on this one, because she made a fantastic post about this on Instagram. As soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, this is one of the best things you've ever brought up, because it's not spoken about enough. There's not enough nuance revealed about this. It seems to be one way or the other. Physique transformations are going to be ridiculously difficult, or it's a walk in the park. So yeah, hats off to you, Katie, for the inspiration to this podcast, because it's an amazing topic.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you to you guys that are listening in. And we'd really appreciate your support to get the pod out there to more listeners. Drop a like or share the episode or podcast with a friend. If you have any feedback or just want to give us a virtual high five, leave a comment below and subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can also find us on Instagram, Sean SKD Coaching and Katie SKD Coaching. So come and connect with us on there for more content about how to stay lean all year round without going to extremes. And you can even drop us a message and have a chat with us. It's been lovely to speak with some of the podcast listeners so far.
Yeah, for sure. And you won't miss out on any amazing posts like the one which inspired this podcast. So you definitely want to get on there, because we can't share everything on one platform all the time. We have to be across multiple platforms. So come and drop us a follow and make sure you don't miss out on any other super helpful content.
So Sean, kick us off then. Why do so many people get turned off their physique goals?
I think one of the first problems which people face when it comes to physique goals, it's just a lack of general understanding about what it means to change your physique in comparison to just improving a few health markers or losing a bit of weight, for example. Because to me, there is a clear distinction between what I would class as having physique-based goals and just general well-being or general health-based goals. When I think of physique-based goals, generally they involve building muscle mass, which can also cross over to health-based goals as well. But typically the muscle mass that is involved in physique goals tends to be a bit more than the average person. The methods used to get there are typically a little bit more intermediate to advanced. It involves changing your body shape, so looking at specific areas which you're looking to develop, potentially changing how certain body parts look aesthetically. It involves, in many cases, a leaner physique to somebody that's just looking to be in a healthy range of body fat, and potentially a different body composition as well. So proportionately higher muscle mass and proportionately lower body fat to your average healthy person. So physique goals tend to be a little bit more specific, and they do tend to be a little bit more on the side of training is a bit more serious, the diet is a bit more serious, and you're looking for visible change in site-specific areas of the body, as well as having a balance between all the muscle groups you want to develop too, to provide that aesthetic look. Why do I think some people get turned off by this? Well, because I think many people start out their fitness journeys with the expectation that they'll just lose 10 to 20 pounds and their body will look significantly different. You know, you can go to the gym for 6 to 8 weeks and your body's going to look significantly different. If I just lose 20 pounds and I lift weights for the next 8 weeks, I'm going to transform completely. And that might be just through a lack of education. It might be because they've consumed misleading information online. But the reality of how long it actually takes to truly see significant physique change is quite daunting when that reality strikes.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. You explained physique transformation very well in that snippet. And there quite often is unrealistic expectations on how quickly that can be achieved, right? I think even for myself years and years ago, you think oh, if I just keep losing body fat, for example, then surely I'm just going to end up looking lean enough that I like what I see underneath. But one, it's really hard to get super lean, right? That it is hard, it's difficult, it's a challenge. And two, generally, if you haven't spent time building muscle for years, you're going to be a little unhappy with what's revealed underneath. And I think that isn't, to my understanding, just common knowledge. Just common knowledge when it comes to perhaps if someone's starting out with their physique goals. Obviously, if you're very well experienced in physique change and you've been doing it for a long while, that will be obvious to you, and you've probably done a few cycles of building and cutting by now. But if you're an individual listening to this that hasn't done that before, or didn't even know about, a building phase specifically to build muscle, they're not going to have a clue how long that takes. And that muscle actually, it's a slow process to build muscle. Not to put anyone off, because my God, don't, because you want to be building muscle for the rest of your life. But it's the fact that it does take time, and it's not going to happen in 8 weeks. You can get a pretty fantastic fat loss result in 8 weeks, right? But even that's still not going to absolutely transform your physique. You're going to just lose some body fat. So I think you're right there. I think a lot ties to unrealistic expectations, not necessarily because the person has these crazy unrealistic expectations based on their knowledge. It's more that that's what's kind of been put out in the social media world, I think. You see, people ripped online, six-packs online, fitness models, etc. But doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a couple of weeks, right? It takes time and it takes commitment.
A lot of the time, what we see online is a snapshot of what that person's been doing most recently. So, for example, you'll see an individual leaning down for a photo shoot. The physique which is revealed in that photo shoot has not been built in the 8 weeks that they've been cutting down, or the 12 weeks, or even the 16 weeks that they've been cutting down for that photo shoot. The physique has been built over a number of years prior to the stage where they cut down to get in shape for that photo shoot. The fat loss result is what reveals the physique that was built underneath. And I think until you've had the experience of going through fat loss phase, building phase, fat loss phase, you won't really understand what that looks like, and you won't really understand the impact that has on your look. This can happen in as little time as around a year, but to many people, a year sounds like a really long period of time. For people that have done this for 5 to 10 years and they've been training for that long and aiming to try and improve their appearance specifically for that long, not just building muscle to get stronger or not just building muscle to be healthy, but we're talking the individuals here that have a little bit more of an aesthetic goal in mind. 5 to 10 years is not that long when you think about those types of individuals, because they're probably going to be doing it for that time anyway. They enjoy it. They enjoy having that structure and routine to their week where they go into the gym on a regular basis and training frequently. It's part of their everyday lives by that stage. I think there's a bit of I would say, miscommunication with how these results are presented in the online space. And again, I'm not throwing any blame around, because we write content ourselves. It's virtually impossible to detail every single step of somebody's journey for the last 5 to 10 years for what you reveal with your fat loss phase working with that client. It's hard enough to hold somebody's attention online as it is. And to get them to read, a paragraph of a couple of hundred words as it is, because of the way that social media is designed. So we can't go into all those details. And I don't think coaches are deliberately taking all of the credit for everything that client has done for the last, say, 3 to 5 years prior to that particular cut for the photo shoot. But sometimes that is how it comes across. And if you're the type of individual where you haven't had a lot of experience of working with coaches or experience of body transformation yourself successfully, then that is how that sometimes comes across, and that can be misleading.
I fully agree. I don't think it's necessarily anyone's fault per se. I think the world we're living in with social media and having to work with algorithms, all of this jazz has an influence and impact for sure. But I just think for years, it's not even recently with social media, for years and years, there's always been fitness models around and what a perfect image looks like, and etc. etc. I think it's not talked about openly enough what it actually takes to achieve that if you're not genetically blessed like that naturally, right? I think, and even those people probably have got habits that allow them to stay that way, that lean, that muscular, that very much align with what you as an individual would need to do to get to that level.
But even that, though, Katie, I think again, it's a misnomer that everyone that is lean can be naturally lean. Like that's certainly not the case. Some individuals get lean and they hold that lean composition all year round because they adapt and change their lifestyles to enable them to do that. Like it's a
Mm.
higher priority for them than having more liberal eating on weekends and having more of a social life and going out for food multiple times a week and picking whatever they want off the menu, having completely free eating, if there's ever such a thing, which there isn't. But, these individuals make significant changes to their lifestyle and make particular decisions and sacrifices that enable them to do that. That's part of that process. That's part of what they buy into in that long term. So I do feel like there is a bit of misunderstanding there. I do feel like people just naturally assume, oh, well, they're lucky and they're blessed genetically to be that way. And that's certainly not the case. There are some individuals that are perhaps blessed genetically to be leaner.
They still would need to be upholding some kind of habits and standards, but also making micro decisions on a daily basis that align with holding that body composition, right? It's the reality. It's
And we're not just talking about being lean here. When we talk about a physique, anybody can get lean without a lot of muscle and still look like they haven't built a lot of muscle. So there is a balance to that as well. The point I want to bring this all back around to, as we're discussing this, right, is myself and Katie. We all have a clear impression in our heads of what we want to look like in terms of our physique, and we're used to working with people that have an impression in their heads of what physique they would like to have. One of the things that we ask members, for example, when we start working with them is not for the sake of comparison, but for more of a realistic comparison, for more of a realistic viewpoint, for more of a direction purpose. We will say, can you send me some examples of a physique that you find to be really inspiring? And when we see those example physiques, it gives us a really good idea of how this client thinks about their body shape and what body shape they would like to achieve. Because we can sit here and describe it from what we would like to see, or we can make assumptions about what we think they are imagining in their heads as they're telling us, I want leaner arms, I want a leaner torso, I want to grow my thighs, I want to grow my glutes. All of these things can be said to us, but then how do we determine whether we want that individual to look like somebody who's been going to the gym for a few years, training 3 to 5 times a week, or somebody that wants to be jumping on stage for a bodybuilding show in a few years' time? There's a big gap between those types of physiques. So having some sort of visual image to go by can be really helpful. And obviously a lot of these individuals have not achieved that image themselves. They can't send a picture of themselves. Why would they be hiring us to get the physique if they already look like that? So using examples from other people that they've seen online or people that they know are useful representations of the sort of direction they like to go. It's just about understanding that you can't get caught in the comparison trap of trying to look exactly like somebody else, because there are so many variables that might stop you from looking exactly like that person.
It's just a bit of a benchmark, isn't it? And a timeline, I think, of more a realistic approach of how long it'll take you to get there. Because from experience, it's going to take you longer than you think. And it's probably going to mean you need to build more muscle mass than you realize and probably lose more body fat than you realize too. So understanding what's required of you can help you decide whether that is something that you actually want to pursue and chase, and also allow you to ride out the hard patches as you go through the journey.
Again, fitness has this habit of wanting to polarize everything. You're either training for health or you're training for physique goals or whatever. Like we're not trying to split the crowd entirely here, but what we're trying to do is help the individuals that feel like their goals are a little bit more towards the physique end of the spectrum, and they feel like they're starting to grow into this space that is quite unusual, that's quite different, that perhaps you don't get a lot of recognition for from the people that you spend a lot of time with in life, because this goal is a lot more personal to you. It might be a little bit more unusual to the average person to see. Like most people wouldn't really understand why you'd want to spend 7 to 10 hours in the gym a week, training as hard as possible. Why you would want to, remove certain things for your diet for a couple of months a year to just try and get a little bit more ab definition. Most people don't think like that, and most people don't understand that logic and that way of thinking. But there are many people that do. They're just in a slightly different space. So we're just trying to help those individuals that realize that their goal does go beyond just being a healthy individual, with a bit of muscle, with a bit of strength, which is what we would promote for everyone. Your goals might go a little bit beyond that. I think sometimes the realization hits you when you perhaps have gone through part of a weight loss journey, or, you've gone through a couple of months in the gym and your language changes about how you talk about your goals and what you'd like to achieve. Like, for example, we might get members that start out with us where, the initial goal is, I want to lose 2 stone. No problem. So let's get you set up to lose 2 stone, or any particular areas that you'd like to see a little bit of fat reduction in. And you might get around my stomach, you might get, oh, I want to lose a bit on my legs, or my hips, particularly around my stomach, my arms. And that's the initial goal. So you get started and you set out with that. But then you have your catch-up calls with them every few weeks, and you do your progress reviews. And a few months down the line, they're starting to say things like, I feel like I'd like to grow my glutes now. I feel like I'd like to get a little bit more definition in my back. I've got this upcoming event. So the wedding is coming up and I've got a backless dress. I'm going to be a bridesmaid. I'd like to try and get my back muscles to show a little bit more. Then that's where they're talking about site-specific areas they'd like to have more shape, have more definition, have more muscle development in. That's a clear sign that the goal is now shifting from just more of what we would class as a general broader goal to this is more of a physique-based goal. Because this is no longer just going to be achieved by 20 pounds of body fat reduction. We need to target those muscles in that area with the right exercises, with the right intensity to build the muscle and make sure that there's less fat covering that muscle.
I think it's fair to say that when some individuals start out, they perhaps don't believe that they can even ever get to that point. It doesn't even cross their mind to think, I could have, a defined back, I could have a more trimmer waist, I could have fuller glutes, whatever it may be. And I can talk about this from experience with clients, it's my own experience. When you first start out, it's like, well, gosh, I can't even fathom losing 20, 30 pounds right now. I don't even know if I'm capable of getting there, never mind the next level. So it's really it's quite nice to see people's confidence levels in what they want to achieve grow and realize that they are actually capable of achieving that next level if they want it. And if they don't want it, no worries. Like, you're a happy, healthy individual by that point. You're confident in your body. You're confident in your ability to be disciplined, lead a healthy lifestyle. But what you unlock next, it only really appears at the right time once you've got to that point in your journey. And it's quite exciting when someone gets to that point because they realize that, well, I can do this. I am capable of this.
That's one end of the scale with individuals that haven't had the experience yet of trying to achieve a physique transformation, and that puts them off trying to push that a bit further initially because they don't realize that it's just the next couple of steps in their journey to what they've already been doing well for the goals that they have. And it's absolutely fine if you're not interested in that stuff as well. There are many people that just want to lose a few pounds for holiday or lose a few pounds to be healthier and don't care about any sort of physique changes. Like, that's absolutely fine. And if you're listening to this podcast and that's you, just know that we don't think anything less of you and you're absolutely fine to do that. But I can imagine, based on what we talk about in the podcast on a regular basis, that most people that listen to this probably will have some slightly more body composition, physique-based goals where they're looking to change certain aspects of their body. They want to have a bit more of an aesthetic, defined, toned, leaner body composition where you're thinking about, okay, how is this exercise in the gym going to change my body in a positive way? And for some of those individuals that already accept and understand that they have physique goals, they can be put off by some of the alpha coaches in the industry that their entire identity is built around the gym and it's hard and fast. You've got to do this or you don't get results. My way is the only way. This is what everyone does. This is what everyone around me does. So there's no other way to get this result. And those coaches are often quite extreme and they put people off physique transformation as well, because most people can't necessarily adhere to those rigid, perhaps slightly excessive methods for too long.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it can be made out that it's too difficult. Not so much made out that it's too difficult. I don't think that's the right way to say it. Perceived to be too difficult because perhaps an individual doesn't want to live their life like what they're seeing this really jacked, lean individual online is leading their life. Most coaches will expose a bit about their life, how they live it, and they're thinking, I don't want to live my life like that. So they think that's the only way to perhaps get to that physique goal, which isn't the case, right?
I'm not going to give it much airtime, but you also don't know what substances these people are taking either when you see them online. It is getting better on social media, in my opinion, in terms of the people that are openly admitting that they're taking drugs for enhancement, for sport or whatever, or competition, or even just general recreational use, to be honest. But it's typically people that are looking to compete that end up going down that pathway and announce it online. There's a lot of grey area still, though, where individuals are taking performance enhancing drugs and not being open about it. To me, it's absolutely the same boat for individuals that are taking the weight loss drugs and not telling people openly that that's what they're doing for their transformation. It's the same thing. It's misleading. And for individuals that look at those individuals and see the results they're getting and see what they are achieving, they can sometimes get caught in the trap of thinking, well, maybe I should be getting results like that. And then they have unrealistic expectations for themselves. So it's not easy for somebody to identify unless you've had experience with this. So it's something to be mindful of when you're looking at other people for inspiration online.
Yeah, I agree fully. It can be easy for your results to be compared incorrectly to someone else if they are using any kind of enhancement.
I'm not saying by any means that, say for example, you have a highly successful enhanced bodybuilder that is evidence-based, that works with a lot of general pop, that gets fantastic results. I'm not saying for any means that people should not look towards, or people should not look for advice from that individual, or that they're not a good coach, because that simply isn't true. What I'm saying is choose your source very, very carefully. It might be a warning sign if you're not the type of person that wants to go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week, meal prepping every Sunday for all your meals in the week. You don't want to compete. You don't want to take steroids. And then you go and sign up with a coach that's doing all that stuff. That might be a warning sign to you. The coach might be absolutely fantastic, saying, this is what I do. You don't have to do what I do. Here are some ways that would work really well for you. Like, if meal prep doesn't work for your lifestyle, what can we do to make convenient meals on the fly? How can we make sure that we're getting the most out of whatever time you've got in the gym? If that's 3 hours a week, then let's maximize that. I know you're not going to be wanting to get as lean as what bodybuilders do for competition. So how can we get you to a place where you're really comfortable to go on your holiday? Like, there's nuance to it. And there might be coaches out there like that, but don't be surprised on the flip side of it if you sign up for a coach that's lifestyle, that's training habits, that's mindset is completely different to yours, and then you sign up with them and their methods are just completely out of sync with what you want to achieve from your physique transformation.
I think it's very hard for general public to understand the nuance when it comes to training and nutrition. Because if they understood the nuance, then they probably wouldn't need any help from a coach anyway, right? So I think the best advice I could give here when you are choosing a coach is, are they talking about nuance? Do they do different approaches and methods with different clients? Or is it more of a one size fits all? And that's where you can make your decision whether you think that one size fits all is right for you or not. Because there's not anything to say it's absolutely not going to work for you, but it's just going in with that understanding and accepting that that's their method, that's their approach. Is a coach chatting about the nuance of different methods and client scenarios, and will they then be able to weigh up your specific scenario to get the best results for you possible, and also help you with your expectations, with the goals that you'd like to achieve? I think that's the best bit of advice I can give when it comes to choosing a coach, because it can be hard too online, because there's so many people out there now coaching, whether they're qualified or not, and it can be an absolute minefield. So it can be hard to do your due diligence when you don't know what you don't know, but it's more take a common sense approach with that, I think.
Yeah, it could be a podcast in itself, to be honest, to talk about like how to identify good sources of information around and how not to. But
Yeah, I agree. I think that might be a helpful one too.
a really good rule of thumb is just think of the person, think of the individual. Are they promoting a way of living and a way of achieving this result that aligns well with you or not? Doesn't have to be identical, of course, but somewhat relatable. Consider the person, not just the education, not just the knowledge, because to varying degrees, we've all got knowledge as coaches, right? We've all got knowledge. We've all got information. We all know how to write training programs. We all know how to give calories out. A lot of the time, the quality of coaching comes down to the person, not just the knowledge, not just the education. It comes down to how well they can communicate, how well they can empathize, how well they can adapt their thinking, how well they can really listen and understand and put themselves in somebody else's shoes.
Or their own biases aside to help you.
Yeah, sometimes choose a less optimal approach that is one that actually can be stuck to, rather than just picking the most optimal approach on paper that somebody is just absolutely not going to be able to fit into their lives. Like, all of this stuff matters a lot when it comes to selecting a coach. So you're going to want somebody that you can have understanding, relatability and rapport with, in my opinion. That's what I would look for. If I was going to go looking for a coach today, I'd want somebody that I know I can trust to be a really good human as well as a really good coach.
I agree fully. And I'm not going to say any more on the matter, because I think, like you mentioned, son, it's quite a big topic on its own for sure. So I'm not going to, I think you summarised that perfectly and give some good advice there to help individuals seek the right coach for them as and when they need it.
What about the flip side of it, Katie? What about the coaches that kind of oversell how easy it is to change your physique and to transform?
I think that's setting up people for failure as well, right? Because you go in with an idea then that this is going to be a breeze. Won't need to change much. I'll still be able to do, all my social events. I'll still be able to eat liberally, all of these things. And then, bam, you're not getting the results you want. Then got to make changes that you're not too happy about. And it can be a recipe for disaster because how can you agree to go in and achieve something or achieve a goal without really knowing what's required? And I think that's really unfair and it can actually really damage a relationship with coach client.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, there's a number of reasons why I think this stuff happens. I think mostly it's just overcompensation for how hard it's been made to sound by the coaches or the influencers or whatever on the other end of the scale that are the hardcore, that are the kind of, crowd that will make out that physique change is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And you've got to do every single method perfectly. And you've got to do this for like 30 to 40 years to get a result. I think that the compensation then is that some of the other coaches that don't have the experience of working with people for long durations or achieving significant physique transformation to try and get themselves out there and to try and attract people into their space, they go the other way. So they try and dumb it down to make it as easy as possible. We've worked with marketing advice ourselves in the past, Katie, where we've sat there and we've disagreed with the marketing consultant because the marketing consultant suggested that we try and make this problem as small as possible and try and make it sound as easy as possible to fix. And we both were looking at one another as if to say, do you know what? This isn't right because this could be misleading people. Like, I'd rather turn some individuals away that realize that it's not for them and get clients that I know are going to deal with the ups and downs of a challenging journey, that are going to be prepared to face some of the struggles and some of the difficulties along the way, than to attract loads and loads and loads of individuals in that all want to quit after the first month or the second month or the third month. And then they're turning around to me and saying, well, you told me it was going to be easy. You told me that these problems were going to shrink and they were going to be significantly easier to handle than what you're now telling me. And they all want a refund or they all want to leave after a month 1, month 2, month 3.
Oh yeah, morally we couldn't do it, could we? We couldn't sit and allow that to happen because if it was easy, then everyone would be walking around ripped right now. But it's not the case, and I think it's really unfair to do that just to get some money in the bank.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I don't know if it's always just down to money either. Sometimes there's an element of, if you don't make it sound doable and achievable, then people won't buy into it to begin with anyway. And we fully get that. We fully understand that.
Well, there's absolutely a balance to get right. You're spot on there. It's a balance to get right, isn't it? But it's about just not being misleading, I think, with the plan of action, because I think everyone knows there's going to be elements of challenge because they're already struggling with certain elements, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be looking for help or support. To then not be honest about what it takes to change something doesn't mean you have to portray that in a very hard way, because the reality is they're going to find it way easier than what they're doing right now. But to make something sound too simple and too easy and like it's just going to fall on your lap, that's just unrealistic.
Yeah, you're doing that person a disservice then, because they're always going to feel like they should be getting better results and they deserve better results than what they're getting. And that might keep them stuck for a very long period of time and actually feel quite resentful. They might start to blame certain things like their genetics, for example, or they might start to blame.
Blame themselves for not getting better results. Just naturally be like, why is it not working for me? Well, actually, it's because we need to do X, Y, Z. But you told me at the start it'd be as simple as this.
Yeah, probably fair to say that when it comes to physique transformation, it's not as hard as you think it's going to be, but there will be challenges and there are some difficulties that you'll have to accept. And there is some discomfort that you'll have to accept as part of that journey. It's probably going to be much more enjoyable than you expect it to be. And overcoming those challenges is going to feel much more rewarding than what you expect them to be. But if you go into it with the wrong expectations from the start, then you're likely to end up bitterly disappointed.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I do agree it's not as hard as people think.
Because what's hard now will not be hard in a few years' time. In fact, what's hard now might not be hard in a few weeks' time, but then you'll have something else that's hard. And then you deal with that. That might take a few weeks. This one might take a few months. But each time you move that little bit further, it's not like the progress that you've accumulated so far is just forgotten about. All of that stuff that you used to find hard is now easier. So now you're just tackling the next hard.
You just got to ask yourself, if it's something you want, what's harder? You sitting thinking about it all the time, being on your mind all the time, or just running away with it and proving to yourself that you can do it and that actually you really enjoy it along the way. I don't think we've had any clients say, oh gosh, like this is ridiculously hard, I'm out. It's like, oh wow, like I can't believe how much I'm enjoying this lifestyle and how much I get back from it. And that light bulb moment does hit at different times for everyone, but it hits and it's like, man, the penny's dropped. I love this.
Yeah, an example like this, like, so spoke about Tish on the podcast before, right? So her first aggressive diet that she did last year, Tish spoke to me at the end of it and said, I've never been so disciplined in my life and I've never meal prepped so much in my life. I can't believe how disciplined I've been and I never would have done this without. Comes around to the next year, she's done her building phase, summer's coming around again. I ask her if she wants to go back into another aggressive diet because it did work really well for her results last time. But there were still those comments about how hard it was. Without hesitation. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to do that again. Like I know I can handle it this time. So it was really hard. She was able to accept that it was really hard and elements were challenging. She's done even better this time round. Like it's felt natural for her to be more disciplined. I haven't even had a comment about the meal prep this time. It just goes to show, doesn't it, that what was once hard will not be hard again in the future. And what she's done by doing these aggressive diets is that she's cut her fat loss time down in half. She's been able to have more time building muscle. She doesn't have to think about fat loss for as many months of the year just because she's done the hard experience once already.
Yeah, you see hard differently when you know how to manage a hard well. And I think that's the difference is hard doesn't feel as hard when it's something that's more of an exciting challenge rather than being a mountain to climb that just seems endless. So yeah, it changes, but you can only get that through your own experience. I could bang on to you all day about how it could be life-changing for you, but it's only going to be life-changing if you go through that experience yourself. It just can't be bought. It just can't. But I know you won't be disappointed exploring it.
That was a long opening segment, but I feel like there was a lot of information in there that needs to be discussed so we could really set the scene for this. So Katie, take us away now with your first point that most coaches won't tell you about physique transformation. What's going to be one of the biggest challenges that people face when they first start this journey?
The first one I'd like us to chat about is doubt creeping in. Even when you've got a coach, even when you've got a plan that you know is going to work for you because you've got full trust in your coach, doubt will creep in. You will have weeks where it's just not plain sailing. Even when you've done everything right by the book, you've ticked all those boxes you know you need to tick, you still have those moments of, is this even working? I don't know. Is it working?
Is it changing fast enough? Should I be getting more out of this? Is there more I could be doing?
I think that's the golden question. Is there more I could be doing when sometimes physique transformation, as we discussed, the process is, I don't want to call it slow. It's slow because it just takes time because you can't speed up the process per se. But sometimes you doubt yourself in terms of, could I be giving more? Could I push more? Is there something else that I could do? But changing your physique doesn't happen overnight, right? It really doesn't happen overnight. And let's be real, people probably know from listening to the podcast now, it doesn't take a few weeks either. It does take longer than a few months. But those moments of doubt, they may even appear more frequently when you're in the early stages of your journey. I won't say they'll ever go fully, but the weeks where you do push past the doubt and really trust the process, they're the weeks that tend to take you into new territory that you haven't been before. And perhaps they push you past points when you may have given up in the past. I think it's really important when that doubt creeps in to split the emotions away from the logics and try and ask yourself, right, am I doing what is required in terms of, your nutrition, your activity, your training sessions? And if you're saying yes to all of those things, and that's not 100% perfect, by the way, I'm ticking those boxes. And you can tell that self-doubt to sit down and shut up because you were doing what you need to do to move along the journey. Because self-doubt, it does have the ability to really set you back if you allow it. If you allow it to take over and allow it to tell you that you're not doing enough, you should be doing more. Are you even making progress? It has the ability to allow you to sabotage, really, self-sabotage, which could keep you stuck or end up sending you backwards.
On the flip side, I would actually say that if you're not experiencing any doubt at all, I think this is a problem because I think that there's going to be times in your journey where you put doubt to one side and you're really confident in your approach. And that's great. Like those are really positive experiences for your confidence levels. You're probably going to get some really good results in that time frame. It's probably where you feel like you're the most locked in when you don't have those doubts. But I don't think it's realistic for anyone to chase a goal for a long period of time and not experience at least some doubt along that way. And sometimes the doubt can reveal to you some things that may need to change. Spoke about guilt a lot on one of the other podcasts and how that can be an alarm system. And sometimes doubt can sometimes be a little bit of an alarm system as well. Like, I'll give you a prime example that's really relevant to me right now. Over the last week, I've had a little bit of doubt about my calories on the aggressive diet because I haven't experienced as quick results as what I did in the first block for a start. I don't feel like my weight is coming down as much as it could be doing compared to my aggressive diet in the previous year. And I actually feel like I'm not finding this block quite as challenging as what I should be doing at this stage. I'm also seeing myself visually and thinking my body is not changing that much. Now, yes, it's a short time frame, but I'm experienced with this. I've got past data to go by. My coaching hat is going, are you being a little bit too conservative because of the calculations you've done? And are you sticking a bit too close to these calculations, or should you drop your calories down a little bit? I was having that doubt. And I've gone over the data and I've compared back to last time and I've crunched all the numbers. I think the calculator is underestimating my body fat levels currently and is putting me on slightly higher calories to preserve muscle mass than what it should be doing. So I'm making an adjustment. That doubt was important. That doubt was revealing to me that something's off. And I think sometimes you need that doubt as a little bit of a reminder. Like Katie said, when you get that doubt, it's important to go, right, am I doing all I can be doing? Is this a normal rate of results for what I would expect from my current input? Is there anything I can change? And is it even worth changing it? The phrase, is the juice worth the squeeze? Even if you do change something, what is the impact of that? Is it going to make a difference? Is it going to move the needle? Because if it doesn't, it might be really inconvenient for you to change that thing for very, very little benefit and very little return. It might be a disproportionate amount of upheaval, logistical difficulty, emotional challenge for very little result. So be realistic about it. But if you don't experience doubt throughout your entire journey at all, I think that you could be missing things. You could be missing blind spots. And it may even be a small case of you being a little bit arrogant.
It's always two sides to the coin, isn't there? And the same with doubt. Doubt sometimes will need to be squashed because you're doing what you need to be doing. And doubt sometimes will be an alarm bell because actually you're not experiencing what you thought you may, and for good reason. So that's why doubt and doubt creeping in is absolutely normal and expected, but also be aware you need to analyze both sides of that coin when doubt creeps in. It's not just self-doubt, what's going wrong, and let it send you south, because actually, hang on a moment, is this doubt telling me it's an alarm, I need to make changes? Or is this doubt actually just, I don't want to say a load of nonsense, but it needs to be curbed and kicked aside because nothing needs to change. You just need to trust the process. But doubt will come. And I think on a physique journey, there's a number of things that can influence that, can't it? Depending on what phase you're in as well. So many variables that can influence and make you doubt yourself or doubt the process, whether that be the scales, whether that be your training, whether that be your nutrition, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's harmful to tell yourself you're not doing well when you are, or it's harmful to keep beating yourself up over the rate of results you're getting when your rate of results are actually reasonable for what you've got going on and what you're doing. But at the same time, it's also very harmful to tell yourself you're doing well when you're not, and to just ignore any doubt. If you could be doing more, if you should be doing more, if you are underreporting calories, or your training is not the quality it should be, you're not putting maximum effort into your training in the gym, then all of these things, they should raise some concern. They should raise some doubt. And then it's dealing with that appropriately. I think to summarize this segment, you should experience doubt. It's what you do with it afterwards that really counts. If you're not experiencing any at all, then this is probably a red flag to you. Might be a bit of Dunning-Kruger going in there where you're not actually able to assess what you don't know. Like there might be things that you don't know that you're missing. It's impossible to know everything. It's impossible to be doing everything right and everything perfect at any one given period of time or ever. So, remember that. But at the same time, don't go too hard on yourself if things are progressing, they are going well, they are going at a reasonable rate, or even if sometimes they're not progressing as well, but that's the current stage you're at, because you have to just maintain for this time period. There's too much stress going on in your life to be pushing fat loss. You have to just maintain for now, and then you can push it a bit harder once you get, all the life stresses out the way and you're in a clearer space to be able to really go all out with your fat loss goals. So expect doubt, but handle it accordingly.
Well said, Sean. Well said. Spot on. Let's chat about the boring middle, because there may be times throughout your journey where you might find it a little bit boring. You're in your rhythm, you're in your routine, you've got your habits nailed, and you might start romanticizing about starting again or getting a bit of shiny object syndrome and wanting to jump ship onto the next thing.
Why does that happen?
The novelty can wear off when you start something new. It can feel exciting, right? You've got a new challenge. It's like, how am I going to overcome this? I've got new exciting goals to work towards. I've got new skills that I've got to learn. I'm learning more about nutrition, more about my training. And all of that it's taking up space in your mind. It's making you feel exciting. It's a new challenge to overcome.
And the results come really quickly early on as well, because naturally when you're new at something, everything feels like a win and everything feels like a reward. Every gym session, your lifting technique gets a bit better. We know that beginners get the best strength gains early on, and they then get the best muscle growth in their early year of training, in their first year of training as well. And sometimes when you're at your heaviest, and for individuals that are carrying most of their body fat, the early stages of body fat reduction are also the quickest as well. And they probably do feel easier than when you start to get leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner.
But once you get past that point, right, and you've had those, I want to say quicker wins, but you've seen progress at a pretty fast rate. And it gets to a point then where things slow down. Not necessarily because they're slowing down because you're doing things wrong, but they slow down because you're no longer in that beginner spell, that beginner stage of your journey. You might have already lost a lot of body fat. You might have already spent years building muscle and your technique is pretty good in the gym. To get the next part of your progress, it's going to take a lot of repetition of the same things over and over and over again to push you past that point, to take you further. And perhaps you're not used to having slower results at the moment because so far your journey's been, I've had quite quick results. I've seen big dramatic drops in my body fat loss. I've seen new muscle being grown. I've seen big changes in my diet day to day. And it's like, wow, these are amazing. But the next part of your journey where, this boring middle where your habits are more autonomous, the day-to-day actions are more repeatable, they're not quite as exciting anymore because they're things you do day in, day out, but they're the things that are needed to keep you progressing. But you've got to then flip your mindset to accept that this is the new progress, this is the new rate of gain. And sometimes that can be tricky to accept.
For sure. I think part of the excitement comes from the challenge of being new to something and having to learn it from scratch and build those habits from scratch. Once you've built some habits and once you're in a routine and once you've got your diet in a really good place, you're just repeating it day to day to day. There's not as much of a challenge. The biggest challenge you face when you get to that middle phase of your journey, beyond the first year or so of lifting, is consistency and patience. Those are the biggest challenges. There's no quick fix for either of those. There's always something you can improve on in terms of, diet quality and training performance. But at that stage, I think it's fair to say for most individuals, especially if you've done your due diligence and you've potentially worked with a coach up until that point, you're going to have training habits, diet structure locked down pretty well. It's going to be in a good place. It's going to be enough to get you results. So it's not going to be like major differences from changing a few of your lifting techniques in the gym or changing an exercise in your training program or changing a training split. Despite what everybody tells you on social media, all the blooming TikTokers that have barely been in the gym long enough to make a video about going to the gym, telling you that certain exercises are going to drastically accelerate your muscle growth. It's absolute nonsense. It might drastically accelerate their muscles because if they walk into a gym and pick up a dumbbell 10 times over the next couple of weeks, they're probably going to grow already because they're so inexperienced. When you get genuinely experienced at lifting, it's not quite as simple as you can just 4 times your muscle growth by doing any particular exercise. It's not a case of changing one thing. It's a case of can you do this to a really high standard with intensity for X amount of hundreds of times a year on repeat for the next 3 to 5 years. Oh, but that sounds really boring. Well, sadly, it is. It's nobody wants to hear this stuff, but it's the truth. The boring stuff repeated day to day is what builds the best physique and it's what gets the best results.
It's the delayed gratification for that then, isn't it? And that the rewards are great when they come, but they're not always weekly, monthly, like when you first start out your journey, because there's a lot of things that you can improve and develop on. There's lots of wins happening at all in one go. But when you get past that point and you get to a level where all of those things are just running like clockwork, it's then repeating those things that run like clockwork for months upon months. And that's that boring middle that you just got to ride out. You've got to accept, you're going to have to wait for delayed gratification to then experience the next, wow, I done that. That is me. But that boring middle, You gotta ride it out.
And it doesn't have to be boring all the time. Like, we're not saying that you shouldn't change things, because you absolutely should. Like, use that feeling of being a beginner again to your advantage. And if you want some novelty, then you can have some novelty. When you change your training program and start doing new exercises, it does feel exciting again for a short time. Yeah, okay, eventually that wears off. But use that to your advantage. Just don't change it all the time, because then you're unlikely to get really, really good at the stuff you do and be able to really consistently achieve progress in what you do. What about improving your lifting performance? Tracking your lifting numbers, having targets for lifting improvements in the gym. That's another fantastic example of feeling like you're making progress and giving yourself that sense of being a beginner again. And you know what? I think people don't really use a fat loss phase effectively enough to give themselves that boost and that novelty effect, because I think that this is one of the easiest ways to achieve a quick win with your physique. I think going into a fat loss phase and absolutely fully committing to a fat loss phase for a short period, even if it's just 4 to 6 weeks, right? Just go absolutely all in with it. Get a really good result in a short space of time. Look more defined, look leaner, reveal a lot of the muscle you've been building. The novelty of that sometimes, and seeing the shape which you haven't seen before, is amazing, and it really does give people a big confidence lift. And I think there's always this negative impression presented about fat loss, how it doesn't do anything but just make you feel restricted and make you feel like you've got to do it. Like, it's just absolute rubbish for people that want to do physique transformation, because that is one of the very few things that you can still do when you're an experienced lifter that is somewhat quick to achieve. We're talking like physique transformation over multiple years, but fat loss can be done over a few weeks. It's incomparable, really, the time scale. Like, a little bit less flexible eating, a little bit more restriction, but you get that wow factor again. And sometimes that can be highly motivating to people. It can give them real excitement about their journey.
I agree fully. It has for me right now, being in this AD, it's the challenge of being in the AD and what's going to come at the end of it before I go back to that, what we call the boring middle, for another 8 to 10 months. But I just want to say here that with the boring middle, I'm calling it the boring middle, right? Because when you get to this point for the first time, that patience and that consistency, that is a new challenge to get through, right? But it's not. It can be seen as boring, but actually, when you are living that and you've got to that place, it's actually really peaceful and calm, because you are in control of your training, you're in control of your nutrition, you're at peace with your health, and it just runs like clockwork. But sometimes you've got to allow yourself to experience that so-called boring middle for long enough to really get the benefits from that and feel it day to day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Katie. Once you get comfortable with doing things repeatedly and doing things consistently, and you come up with your own little coping mechanisms for how you're going to do that same thing consistently and repeatedly, then it doesn't actually feel that boring. It's actually quite enjoyable. It's quite enjoyable to not have to feel overwhelmed about chopping and changing things all the time. And it's quite comforting to know that the actions that you're doing on repeat are going to get results, because you've got proof that it works. If you're doing things repeatedly and consistently and you're making progress, sometimes it's slow and steady progress, but you got proof that it's working. I don't ever hear anybody feel bored about results, about getting results. Like, everyone wants to experience progress and get results. So what are you really bored by? I do think it makes sense that when you first start doing things a little bit more on repeat, yes, you're likely to experience that sense of boredom where it's like, God, is it going to be the same as this forever?
I think at that point, you're at the stage of you're in that place where your habits and daily actions are just kind of on repeat, but you're not at the stage yet where you're like, wow, I'm really changed my physique. So it can be a bit of that kind of period where it's like, do I want to be doing this? Is it going to get me the results I want quick enough? That's when it's kind of like, is the boring middle where I need to be? But usually that is where you need to be to get to the point in the future where you're like, wow, look at this physique transformation.
Sometimes you just got to ride that phase out a little bit, and you realize actually it's really not as bad as what you think. I think a lot of people are quite uncomfortable with boredom and feeling bored. Like, I know I get quite uncomfortable feeling bored, but sometimes that's you having too high expectations of experiencing significant change, significant progress, being happier if you weren't so bored. And sometimes you realize that's not the case, because, like, just a small example, life can be really frantic and really stressful at times. And there'll be many times where I've said, I wish life would just slow down and be a bit more boring. Like, when I'm on holiday sometimes and I'm sat there and there's not a lot to do, I think sometimes there is a case to be made for a little bit more boredom in this moment might actually be a good thing, not a bad thing. So
Yeah, have less decisions to make. Get less decision fatigue. Just be happy being settled in your groove.
yeah, absolutely. Something else that happens, and it quite often happens at the same time as reaching this kind of boring middle ground, is your identity shifting from where you first started. Tell us a bit more about that, Katie.
I think it's something that's really underestimated actually when it comes to going on a physique transformation is how much of an identity shift that is required. And to be honest, it can be even hard to accept that initially, or even just admit that that's even something that's required for physique transformation. And what I mean by this is a lot of the potential maybe habits or the environments that you're currently in and how you conduct yourself, the choices that you make in that will likely look very different when it comes to changing your physique. There'll be a lot of decisions that you'd need to make on a daily basis or during certain events around certain people that will require you to give a different answer, will require you to make different decisions to someone else in the room. And that can be quite uncomfortable initially and quite hard to do initially for many different reasons, right? For many different reasons.
And when Katie says that, and that you'll be required to make different decisions, that's not because your coach is telling you have to. In some cases, it might be encouraged, but all coaches can lead a horse to water, but they can't force it to drink. You'll be encouraged to change your behaviors because of the goals that you set yourself, because of the standards that you set yourself. If you're pushing for physique change and physique transformation, then there's a good chance that your goals and habits to achieve those goals will be deemed more valuable than some of the actions and the decisions which take you further away from those goals. For example, it's less valuable to stay up late at night watching Netflix shows on repeat, snacking uncontrollably, than it is to unwind, turn the TV off earlier, go to bed, get a really good night's sleep, recover well, and get back to the gym the following morning.
There'll be certain habits like that I don't want to say old you, but previous you would have done. And whether you were comfortable or not comfortable doing them, that's a behavior and habit that was part of your life then, part of your lifestyle then. And that behavior and habit may have not just impacted you, it might have been something you've done with your partner, with your children, the person that you live with, whatever it may be, but will need to be changed. Not because you have to do that, like you said, Sean, because those behaviors don't align with the goal that you're trying to achieve. So something needs to change. Otherwise, frankly, you're trying to achieve a goal that's just not going to be possible based on the actions that you're taking out every day. And that's just one of them, right? That's just one example. The same could be meal choices when you're out in a certain environment, for example. You may opt for something that's a little bit more lower calorie, a little bit, higher in protein, seen as the more healthy option, because you know that that is a habit and decision that's going to align with your nutritional choices at that moment in time. But previous you might have gone for the double stack burger chips, and the people around you may be like, well, that's not like you to go for that. Or you're trying to be healthy now. Why aren't you having that? And it can be hard sometimes to stick with what the new you wants because you're around an environment that hasn't seen that version of you yet. You can also be tempted not to follow suit with the new you because of the environment that you're in pushes you towards more of the older habits that you had. And that can be really hard in the moment sometimes to go, oh, do I really want this? Because you start doubting yourself, you start second guessing yourself then. And that takes, it takes a bit of an identity shift to do that time and time again, to realize that actually, okay, I've made that healthier choice in that environment, even though it was perhaps harder for me to do so because there were comments from other people. But afterwards you go, I feel bloody great for making that decision because actually now I know I've stuck with the nutritional targets that are working for me and my goals right now. I didn't actually need or want that burger. I would have just been given into the environment that I was in. But until you go through those experiences and actually make decisions that are more aligned with the behaviors that get you to the goal that you want, that identity shift, I'm going to say, will probably never happen if you don't try and push past those hard moments. But it will mean that your identity does shift slightly. No, I'm not even going to say slightly. Your identity will shift because the decisions and choices that you're making in those moments are very different to what you would have done previously.
I think the way that I would describe this is that you will have these mini identity crises.
I like
where
that.
you're presented with the same scenario which you may have been presented with 100 times, but your brain starts to think differently in those environments and in those scenarios. And like Katie said, the more experienced you are at being presented with that scenario, and the more times you make a new decision or a different decision to perhaps what the old you made in the past, the more you start to lean into the new identity and the old one tends to get forgotten about. But on the first few occasions of having that experience, it feels really weird and uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable for sure,
And
I'd
you
say.
probably, and depending on the environment, you might get a lot of pushback around you. I care much less about this sort of stuff now, but like an example, when I was in my 20s and I was really trying to get into my fitness, I was trying to drink less because it was just holding me back in terms of so many elements of my fitness goals and my lifestyle. But I still wanted to keep a relationship with some of my childhood friends, some of my rugby mates, and it was just so difficult to be accepted in those environments, like immensely difficult. I just never felt like no matter how badly I tried to be confident enough to just fit in with that and to stick to my guns. Like just the amount of, for want of a better way of putting it, the amount of crap that I had to take for trying to be confident enough to just do my own thing in those environments. It just wasn't worth going out with them in the end. I just realized it's just not worth the hassle. It's just not worth the jibbing and the jibes and the kind of the poking. And that's a part of my identity that I had to accept was shifting. Now I'm not saying that you have to lose all your friends. This was my choice. This was a choice that I had to make. But now I feel much more comfortable going out in any setting and just being like, yeah, I'm only having like one or two drinks. Or even I'm like more so this year than ever. I'm not drinking. I'm not having a drink. I had to go through all those uncomfortable experiences to realize what I really wanted. And there were times where I shifted back towards when I was out with my mates in my 20s or, a couple of years ago, maybe. I chose to shift back towards that old identity of myself. And I really didn't like it. I really didn't like the outcome. I really didn't like who it made me become in that moment. And I realized how much it took away from the person that I enjoy being on a day-to-day basis. I enjoy being that fit and active person. I don't really want to have those other behaviors in my life. They don't give me the same value as other stuff. So yeah, it's having those experiences and realizing what's changed for you and realizing that how everything contributes toward your values in life. Just having those experiences that allow you to decide for yourself what behaviors and habits you want to uphold and what is going to make you feel better or worse about those decisions afterward.
I think it'd be a little, and I'm going to say it naive, right? A little naive to think that your behaviors, your habit, which are all part of your identity, aren't going to change when you go through a journey like this. And I think the reason why I can say this is I think I was perhaps a little naive about it. I guess, it's a bit like a bull in a china shop and just went for it because that's what I wanted. But if you keep doing the same things that you're doing currently, then you're not going to get a different outcome, right? So common sense says that your behavior, your habit, which align to your identity, who you are, how you live your day to day, they will need to change. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy along the journey. Doesn't mean there's not going to be hiccups along the road where that identity that you want to be isn't challenged, isn't made to feel uncomfortable in certain environments.
And it doesn't always have to be one or the other either. Sometimes you might choose to do something similar to how you used to do it. But
And
then you have to take it on the chin and deal with the consequences of that. Sometimes that might backfire and you might go, oh, well, that was a really poor decision. I'm not doing that again. Sometimes you might go, well, I quite enjoyed doing that on this one occasion, but if I do it too much, it's going to take away from the other stuff. It's doing it in an informed manner. But yeah, you will. Bottom line is that you will have the mini identity crises as you go, and you are going to be faced with, oh, do I do this or do I do that? I would say this is not just a fitness thing. This is part of life. This is part of being a human being and being a mature adult and actually having to make decisions about yourself and having to apply critical thinking skills. I know that can be quite challenging at times, but it's a really important part of life.
yeah, I think otherwise those identity crises that you find yourself in will just be happening too frequent and potentially become a bit more harmful for you because you don't know where you want to be. And that can be quite stressful. I think going through the uncomfortable stages of that shift in your identity is part of the process. Expect it to arise and give yourself the space to trial different things so you can know what is right for you.
Almost in parallel to having an identity crisis is wanting to choose an easy outcome when you're feeling discomfort. I would coin this like having one eye on the exit at all times. You're always looking for the nearest escape. And I think this can be a real hindrance to people that want to achieve physique goals.
One eye on the exit. I like that. I like that. It's like there's always an easy way out when it gets hard, or when something crops up that I don't really want to solve this problem now, so let's just jump ship and do this.
Yeah, the default stance is, oh, this isn't working, I'm out.
Yeah.
Rather than let's sit and assess what can be improved, why isn't it working, why is this making me feel uncomfortable, should I get some help with this? It's just, I'm not doing that.
And that rarely ever solves a deeper problem, right? It just masks over it temporarily. And then a few weeks later, that same problem or a different problem will arise and then you mask over it again, rather than just riding through the emotional discomfort, the uncomfortable moments and go, right, why is this actually happening? Why is it making me feel like this? Why is it making me act like that?
How many times do we work with people, Katie, that come into our space where they were actually doing the right thing at one point in time, but they changed it? And they changed it because they started to feel uncomfortable. They might have reached that boring middle that we spoke about earlier. And instead of just trying to work out how they could deal with the discomfort a little bit better in that moment, how could they make that discomfort feel a bit more normal for them? They changed their plan. And then they changed it again, and then they changed it again, and they changed it again. They've changed it so many times by that stage, they forgot what actually worked and what didn't. But they actually had the right method at one point in time. It's just they didn't allow themselves to feel uncomfortable for long enough, and now all of a sudden they're starting again.
And don't really know what works and what doesn't work because there's been too many swaps, changes, mixes up, new methods. Because even if you want to try a new method, that's absolutely fine, but still understand why the current one works, the elements that do work, because they will always be part of every method, that there are elements that will work for you and there'll be elements that don't work from you. There'll be pros and cons to every method, approach that you choose. But if you go along without actually thinking about the pros and cons, you'll never be able to settle on a longer term approach that does work for you. You'll always feel like you want to jump ship or change plan. And that, to me anyway, is quite a stressful place to be because you're not really finding answers for yourself. You're not really getting to know what works for you as an individual. You're just hoping there'll be another new answer soon that will fix that particular problem at that time.
Yeah.
And your problems may change throughout life, throughout different circumstances. So knowing and understanding why different approaches work for you at different times will allow you to choose the right one at the right moment for you.
I think a lot of people will coin themselves inconsistent when they change their plan a lot of the time. And if I'm going to be a bit impartial here, I will say, yeah, you are being inconsistent. I think this is where inconsistency creeps in for a lot of people because they change things far too frequently. And that leaves that feeling of inconsistency. But the reality is they probably are being inconsistent. If you're not doing something consistently, then anything that isn't done consistently is the opposite. It's inconsistent. And in my experience, at least, more often than not, it's not a logistical problem. It's an emotional problem. Inconsistency, a lot of the time, stems from not being able to sit in discomfort or handle or manage discomfort for long enough. And it doesn't matter how many times you change your exercises. It doesn't matter how many times you change your diet. It doesn't matter how many times you change your program or change your coach. None of that shit matters because you've still got the inconsistency problem. You've still got the problem with handling discomfort. Because every single one of those things you change is eventually going to reach a point where it feels uncomfortable. Either it's going to get harder, it's going to take longer to see progress, it's going to get a bit boring and repetitive. So many different variables that will make this challenging and make you feel uncomfortable. You're going to be in those environments like we discussed in the last section where your identity is being challenged. This new identity that you've now spent a couple of months or years forming is now being challenged. All of these things are part of the journey. They are perfectly normal for you to experience. If you keep changing things up every single time you encounter a roadblock, you're going to feel inconsistent and you're never going to solve the problem, which is causing all of these inconsistencies to begin with, which is how do I deal with the discomfort that comes from feeling like I'm not entirely sure what the best outcome is right now. When there's some doubt in the mix, when you're feeling impatient or you're feeling guilty because you've just slipped up, but now you're blaming your diet because apparently your diet was too restricted. Maybe the problem's an emotional one.
I agree fully, Sean. And from experience with myself and clients too, that I'd argue it's the most important part to explore rather than trying to escape what's happening. It's to explore that deeper issue, that discomfort that you're feeling with whatever that problem is or whatever those thoughts that are happening in your mind. It's not to just ignore them and hope they never turn up again because they will come back at some point and you'll have the same problem again and again. So I think it's really important to not jump ship and understand why these problems are happening and why you're thinking in that way and why you're reacting in that way.
Again, I think this stuff is the stuff that extends beyond fitness, like being able to stay calm under pressure, being able to to sit with discomfort for a little while so you can figure out why you're feeling that way. So you can figure out if anything needs to change or if it doesn't. There's only so many things you can try and change before you just end up going in bloody circle. There's only so many different training splits you can do before you've done them all and you're just changing back to the same one that you've done before. There's only so many different exercises you're going to have access to, and there's so many different machines you're going to have access to in your gym. Right, you change gym, okay, you get some different kit. Eventually, you're just going to end up doing the same stuff again.
Same with diets. If you don't truly understand the whys behind, or you're not aware of the decisions you're making around your diet, then it doesn't matter how many different diets you label them as or try. You can just keep going around in circles with those.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how many diets you choose to try losing fat. When you come off a diet, you can't keep your habits up, and you're going to regain fat at an accelerated rate, and you can't stay as lean as perhaps what you'd like when you come off the diet. Doesn't matter what diet you did in the first place. Doesn't matter how many times you try something different. Oh, I'll try it this time because last time I regained afterwards and it was too restrictive. It doesn't matter what diet you do. You're going to regain fat if you don't handle that period afterwards better in the future anyway. And guess what? Learning to hold your calories back and not just eat liberally when you come off a diet and not just go grabbing everything in sight is really challenging. It's really, really hard to do. It's uncomfortable to have to hold yourself back for a couple of weeks just while your hunger hormones calm down a little bit and while your cravings get reduced and while you just settle into eating more calories again and feeling like you're in control of things. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but it will get you the outcome you want. If your first reaction is to change your plan, so not keep up the habit that you used to lose fat in the first place, to not keep an eye on your calorie intake, to not eat with moderation, to not be sensible because it feels uncomfortable to do that, then the next change is going to happen after that where you go back to a diet because you gain too much fat, but you go back to a different diet this time because you blame the diet in the first. You're just going around in circles.
Absolutely.
And here's the final point about being uncomfortable, right? And this is what, again, most people won't tell you this because they don't want to scare you or put you off. But if you sit with something that's uncomfortable for long enough, eventually you get comfortable with it. And I can guarantee that there's going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast that have been uncomfortable with something like their body composition, for example, for a very long period of time, and will hold their hands up and say, I've got comfortable being uncomfortable. Like you are your own proof that that can happen. So if you get comfortable with not feeling your best, with not being in the best shape, with perhaps not quite achieving your physique goal, then use that to your advantage and flip it on its head and say, well, actually, if I just stuck this out for a little bit longer, even though it feels uncomfortable, maybe I would get comfortable with it. Maybe I'm just jumping ship too early. Apply the same logic.
I really like how you explained it. That leads us nicely onto the final point of the pod. As you can't avoid the shit parts altogether.
In case that hasn't been made clear to you by this stage.
Yeah. I really don't want this podcast to sound absolutely like a negative Nelly podcast because it's not all negative, but it's just, I think, bringing to light that it's not all sunshine and roses either. And you won't always feel your best while doing everything right. You're not always going to feel positive. You're not always going to feel like everything's going at a steady rate. You're a human being. You're a human being with complex emotions, with complex responsibilities in life, complex physiology. There is so many layers to it. It is impossible to feel bloody good about everything every minute of every day.
Oh, 100%. I think it's incredibly naive to think that you're going to enjoy everything all the time. You know, specifically if we're talking about chasing physique goal, ask me every single week if I enjoy taking a set of Bulgarian split squat or even my leg press, which comes after my Bulgarian split squat, to near failure every single week on repeat for 6 months in a row. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah, and twice on Sundays. No, of course I bloody don't. It's really freaking hard. It really hurts. But I know that that moment of gratification will come when the sun eventually comes out in Wales and I can actually have a barbecue, or when I go on a holiday later on the year and I put my holiday shorts on and they're fitting me really nicely and I don't look like I've got two little twiglets dangling out from the bottom of my shorts because I decided to take those leg sets to failure. And I live for that moment and I'm going to sit in that discomfort for as long as it takes because I want to feel more comfortable in a different environment, in a different space as a result of my hard work. And I can't have it all. So I either suck up and do the legwork or I get twiglet.
Oh dear, Sean. Just imagine these twiglets now. Sorry, Sean. Oh, my mind is distracted.
I'm not blessed with naturally muscular legs, okay? I've had to work immensely hard to get any muscle on my lower body. It's not an area that I'm fortunate enough to grow quickly. This isn't me throwing me a pity party. It's just how I work. It's how my body works.
That's you accepting how your body works and doing something about it, right? That's what it is. It's accepting that. Okay, my upper body grows a lot quicker than my lower body, and now I'm gonna have to really put the graft in my lower body so that I feel comfortable and confident. And I feel like I got a balanced approach, and I don't have piglets as legs, for example. And it is a hard one to accept. It's hard to accept that someday you will still have a really shit mood day. You may get frustrated with the process, or you may even have a bad body image day. Because some people suffer with this more than others, right? Just because you're chasing a physique goal and you're changing your body and you're changing your body shape, it doesn't mean that there won't be any wobbles along the way or you won't feel bad about your body someday. You know, there's a lot of people that may suffer with body dysmorphia, right? And those days aren't just going to disappear because you're in the process of changing your physique.
Yeah, like to that, I'd say like you could be you could have just gone through like to that. I would say you could have just gone through a process of transformation and achieved amazing results. Your before and afters have gone up on social media. You've had loads of support. All your friends are singing your praises. They all think you look amazing. 2 days after that, you got to put on an outfit to go to the gym, and you're having a bad body confidence day, and you're like, I can't wear this to the gym today. I look awful in this. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense. You've just had all this praise. You just had all this validation for your efforts that you put in. Like, why do I now feel really bad about it? And that could easily spiral into thinking, oh, maybe I haven't gone far enough. Maybe I need to do a bit more. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do that. Or maybe, just maybe, you're just having a bad body confidence day. You might feel completely different about this tomorrow. Like we've spoken about in previous podcasts, your negative thoughts can spiral out of control quite quickly if you allow them to as well. This isn't me being all doom and gloom, but I think it's just worth accepting that there are going to be some days where you feel a bit shitter. There are going to be some parts of this journey where you do feel a bit shitter, where you may want to quit, where you may be thinking, oh God, is it even worth it? That's normal.
And it's just a temporary feeling. It will pass. And it'll pass much quicker if you just allow yourself to accept. It's just temporary feeling. I'm not going to allow myself to engage in it too much. I'm going to allow myself to feel it and then go park it and move on with my day as I normally would.
I saw an incident in the gym the other day. A girl was training with her leggings and her sports bra on. She came into the gym with a baggy top. She took the top off while she was training, so she had a sports bra and her leggings on. She done an exercise or two, and then she put the top back on, the baggy top. And somebody said to me in the gym, "Oh, well, like why she take the top off and then put it back on?" They were like, "Oh, if you're confident enough to wear it, then, or if you're not confident enough to wear it," that's what they said. If you're not confident enough to wear it, then why wear it in the first place? Kind of. And I thought to myself, I can understand that point, but it actually made me, because I've had problems with body confidence myself. It actually made me think, well, this person might have actually tried that outfit on. I can just imagine the scenario, right? They're stood in their bedroom, sports bra leggings go on, look in the mirror. "Oh, I'm not sure I like that." Put the baggy top on. Baggy top goes on, it's like, no, I'm going to try and be brave and push through this. Baggy top comes back off, sports bra leggings on. That's how I'm going to the gym. But now I'm second guessing myself. Baggy top goes back on. They get to the gym, they start training. They feel like they're working those muscles. They feel a bit more confident. They get a bit of a pump, whatever, right? All that artificial stuff. I don't really care. Take the baggy top off. They've got hot when they're working out. Take the baggy top off. Now they're in their sports bra and leggings. Then all of a sudden they're resting in between their sets. They look over at somebody like Katie's back performing a lat pull down or a chin up. And they're like, oh my God, look at that girl's muscles in her back. Baggy top goes back on. Confidence squashed again. That person's confidence has gone up, down, up, down, up, down, up in the space of like 15, 20 minutes. You have no idea what somebody else is experiencing. You have no idea. It's just an example of how changeable people's emotions are. Look, I really don't want to blow my own trumpet here, but some people might not be as emotionally intelligent as me, but I can only be emotionally intelligent over this particular matter because I've been the type of person where I wouldn't wear a vest to the gym for years and years and years and years because I was so conscious of my arms looking skinny. I'd be the type of person where I was afraid to show my legs in short because of my legs looking so skinny, or afraid to take my top off in the. I still have mental battles sometimes about doing that. So I can understand what it's like to have change in body composition and change in body confidence, and it can change sometimes quite quickly in short spaces of times. I guess the point of all that is to say that, well, firstly, don't be too quick to judge somebody else. Just let them be. Just let them deal with their own emotions. They're probably dealing with enough as it is without having to worry about what you're thinking about them as well on top. Like, why does it matter to you? Secondly, you are going to have these wavering emotions. Some people will have these wavering emotions, and you've just got to ride the wave.
Spot on, Sean. I'm proud of you for sharing that because it's not easy to talk about body dysmorphia if you do experience it. And I've seen it firsthand with you, how quickly it can change. In an instant, it could be anything that triggers that change, right? And it can happen pretty quickly. So I think I've not experienced this myself. So I can't say it from my experience. I can only talk about it from being with you. But all I know is that I've got to encourage you to go, it's a momentary feeling that will pass. And you handle that so much better now. And I see you at peace with it so much more now. And that's not just one variable change in that, right? There's many things that have contributed to that. But it's not to say that it'll totally go, that those bad body images will totally go.
But
It's
again,
knowing and understanding that they're a moment that you are capable of overcoming, and it's just trying to ride those waves.
again, it gets better with experience because I have grown more comfortable sitting in that discomfort. I now wear a vest in my gym most sessions I train. Judge me all you want for that. I don't really care. I've judged myself enough times that I no longer care how other people judge me. Trust me. But it gets to a point where it's just like, yeah, okay, this is the norm now. Even like you take me to a beach tomorrow and it's a boiling hot day. I'm gonna have a few moments of not sure I want to take my top off yet, not sure I want to take my top off there. Yeah, and then I'll just do it because you get comfortable enough with feeling discomfort that you realize it's not actually going to hurt you that much. It's not going to cause that much problem. Like, what's the worst that can happen kind of thing. So you just kind of get on with it. And for those that lack body confidence, I'm not saying that you go parading around half naked to try and deal with your body confidence issue, but there are ways that you can make micro changes and micro commitments to yourself in order for you to start improving. So giving yourself some exposure to those things that you feel uncomfortable about and realizing they're not actually as bad as what I thought.
And again, it's not letting those negative thoughts spiral, right? Because they will come, and they'll probably come with vengeance, and you've got to try and rein them back in
I
because
Yeah, exactly. I also expect that these thoughts are going to come back from time to time. I don't expect just because I was confident a couple of weeks ago or last year when I went to the beach, I'm going to feel better this time round. I don't have those expectations. I don't start beating myself up and start feeling like I fail if those moments of poor body confidence come back at any point. I just go, well, that's how I'm feeling today. It is what it is. Could be different tomorrow. Who knows? So you just respond accordingly in that moment.
and it's not even sometimes the case. It could be better tomorrow. Sometimes within an hour, it's different.
Could be better 10 seconds later once I've taken my top off and gone, oh, it's not so bad.
It, yeah, and I have seen that firsthand with you. It's, oh, you're like, oh, yeah, no, didn't need to stress with that. Okay, let's move on. But that wouldn't have happened many years ago, right? It would. It wouldn't have.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. And people wouldn't necessarily know that about me if they were listening to this podcast, but
No,
that's that's the reality and that's the truth. So
very raw sharing that. And I'm proud of you doing so because I'm sure there's many people that will be able to relate to that.
another part of the physique journey that's going to be shit, Katie, that I think we can all agree on being quite shit, the fat loss phase.
I'm loving the challenge, but you will be tired. You will lack some energy. You're gonna feel like your muscles are like flat as a pancake. That happens. It's natural. That can add to you feeling a bit shitty about your body image in that moment, in that time, because you're not quite feeling as defined or hard as you were when you had more pumped muscle, more glycogen filled muscle. All of that can contribute to you not feeling so great in the moment and feeling a bit shitty about yourself. But again, it's temporary. It's a temporary feeling.
Absolutely. I mean, the few things that people actually enjoy about fat loss phases are far outweighed by those negatives in the day to day anyway, at least in the day to day, because you don't see enough of a result day to day in fat loss to make up for the fact that you're hungry, you're tired, you're probably having to be a bit more mindful of your food. You're having to be super accurate with everything you weigh on the scales. You're probably having to say no to certain things. On a normal day, you might go, yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of that today. Your physique isn't changing that much overnight to make up for that. People might reflect on the fact that I'm actually enjoying the foods I'm eating because I'm eating different things to what I'd normally eat. And it's shown me that healthier foods can be more enjoyable and it's making me get creative and stuff. That's more of a byproduct of what you're doing. That's not specifically the fat loss that's fun. That's some of the methodology that you're doing. That's some of the creativity that you're putting in place in order to get the result. And again, that novelty will die off after a while as well, wouldn't it? There's so many times I've cooked a prawn stir fry over the last couple of weeks that I've actually sat down and gone, I'm really enjoying these prawn stir fries now. Yeah, okay, they're nice. I eat them. But it's like, I was saying to Katie on the walk yesterday, I was like, I'm really starting to get fed up of prawn.
Never like the ink waffle menu yet, mate.
Yeah, because you're not the one cooking them every week.
I don't think I'm ever going to come off a menu. We might have to have those 4 times a week.
Well, I was thinking last night, I was like, oh, what I'd give to swap these prawns for a piece of salmon right now. I really would. But, prawns are less calories, better gram of protein per calorie. Just got to get on with it. But look, fat loss as a whole is pretty rubbish. We don't really tend to do it for the enjoyment of doing it. We do it for the results. We do it for the reward. And we do it a lot of the time for the enjoyment of the challenge as well. So use that to your advantage. Embrace it as part of the challenge. And then perhaps you'll learn to enjoy hard stuff because of what you are able to achieve and accomplish by putting yourself through the hard stuff. And also the feeling that it gives you as a person. Speaking about that new identity, it's the discipline, it's the commitment to your goals, it's following through with the targets you set yourself and the actions and the behaviors which you've already identified are required to get to those goals. Those are the true rewards. Those are the bits which really feel valuable, but you have got to go through some crap to get there, Sam, because those feelings can't be bought. They can't just be waved with a magic wand. They need to be earned over time.
They wouldn't feel as rewarding if they were just given to you on a plate either. The reward comes because you got over the hump. Chasing a physique goal, it is a long-term project. It takes commitment, discipline, and patience. You don't need to have it all figured out before you start, but you must be open to it being long-term. And then there will be some challenging parts along the way, and then they're normal. It's normal to experience those. But once you commit to your own physique goal, your discipline will be strengthened throughout the journey, and you learn to be patient as you go.
There's nothing worse than having unrealistic expectations. They can make you feel like a failure even when you're not. They can make you want to change things when they're working. They can leave you in one hell of a mess. This is where having a coach can be a massive advantage. All of our clients know exactly what they can expect in order to achieve. All of our clients know what they can expect to achieve in every phase of the journey they're working in, because we map out their journeys together. We factor in things like their holidays, their events, their work trips. We make it so personalized that everything feels like it's got a plan, even if it's not necessarily a traditional part of a fat loss or muscle building plan, for example. Members never feel lost or unmotivated because there's always something that they can focus on. There's always something that they can improve, whether it's making simple decisions, whether it's making simple switches, whether it's tweaking, adjusting things in the gym, or just learning how to be a little bit more flexible with not tracking over the course of a week. They feel excited about the challenges which they face, and they embrace the difficulties that come with them as part of the journey. And when a moment of, oh, is this even working, creeps in for them, because it will, and it does, and it's unrealistic to expect this to never happen again. Myself and Katie are there to reassure them that they're either doing exactly what they need to be doing or to provide clear, structured advice on what they can do to change.
If you'd like to have a chat with one of us about how coaching could work for you or what options there are available to you, then head to the description, fill in the inquiry form, and one of us will be in chat, and one of us will be in contact, and one of us will be in contact to have a chat with you. That's it for today's episode. But next week, we're going to be back with some client-specific scenario. We're going to grill each other to demonstrate how we would handle some tricky real-life scenarios as coaches. You'll learn how important it is to avoid a one-size-fits-all thinking, and how you learn how important it is to avoid one-size-fits-all thinking, and how you don't always have to do everything the same as someone else or even another coach. See you.